what's going on? Like, why did I just do what I just did? Or why am I thinking what I'm thinking? And get that curiosity thing going so that you can go, oh, maybe it's because of this filter, or maybe it's because of this experience from my youth, or maybe it's, and do I need to go back and revisit some things from the past?
Welcome to Tell Your Story, the podcast. We are your co-hosts, Gene McIntyre, pastor and emotional intelligence coach, and Marybeth Steigenga, counselor and relationship coach. We believe that everyone has an extraordinary story to share. Together, we invite you to embark on a journey of self-discovery as we unravel the profound wisdom that lies in looking back to propel us forward. Prepare to be moved and inspired by tales of unwavering resilience, personal growth, and the pursuit of authentic living, including your own. Join us as we delve into the transformative power of storytelling. Because when you tell your story, you have the potential to change your life. And make sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcast so you can be inspired. Well, hello. Welcome to podcast number 8, Marybeth, of Tell Your Story. I'm so excited, and this is incredible.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Can't believe we're on episode number 8. Now that we started recording, it's going pretty fast. So looking forward to continuing.
Exactly. Thank you so much for all your guys' comments and telling us your stories, telling us how this podcast is already changing your lives. We're very excited about it. We're very excited about those of you that have been emailing us to put your names down to tell your own stories. We're super excited. And this is a huge milestone because today we speak about 7 steps to move forward, which brings our process or our framework of telling your story to a full circle. And after today, Marybeth and I are going to be using the same parameters with the clients that we brought forward a few weeks back. And then after that, then you guys are going to be telling us your story, and we're going to be discussing those stories based on this framework. If you have never joined us, if this is your first time, welcome to the Tell Your Story podcast. My friend is counselor and relationship coach, Dr. Marybeth Steigenga. And I am Gene McIntyre, a pastor and an emotional intelligence and life coach. And we believe in the power of our stories to change our lives and the lives of those around us. Right, Marybeth?
We really, really do. And hey, I forgot to mention in the last episode, I made a very beautiful handout which details all of the steps of the framework. And I think we're going to have it linked somewhere where they can click on it and open it and use it as a reference guide. So
Yes.
that is available for your use if you get lost in the framework of all of the different steps that we have introduced so far.
Yes, and it will be the link will be in the description of this podcast of last week's podcast. I'm actually going to drop it in the description of all the podcasts ever since we started with rotten eggs, broken records, and all that good stuff. 7 steps to heal, 7 steps to move forward. In that way, it doesn't matter where you are in this process, you're going to have that beautiful, nifty guideline, which my friend Marybeth is extremely good at developing. And
very, very therapeutic for me as I work on my little Canva flyers for people.
Awesome. Awesome blossom. It sounds like a plan. So today, Marybeth, we are talking about 7 steps to move forward. We've said it here before. 7 is the number of perfection. And although none of us are perfect, we would like to think that we are approaching this framework with gusto and umph. And so take us away to those 7 steps to move forward.
All right. Step number 1, know thyself. So what do you think of when I say know thyself, Jenny?
I think about that phrase that's so common, like Dr. Heal Thyself, that basically assumes, make sure that you are healed before you touch others, right? But I think it talks about understanding who we are and where we are in the process, maybe assess whether we've uncovered everything that we need to uncover assess how we're changing, assess our support system, whether it's working, maybe correct our course if we find something that's not working. I mean, self-assessment, besides doing life coach and emotional intelligence coach, I'm also a professional of human resources and organizational development. So normally, whether I'm working as a consultant or as an employee for someone's payroll, I specialize, among many other things, in helping people evaluate others' performance. And I always tell them the first step is to allow people to assess themselves, because then you understand what the gaps are between the way you perceive their performance and the way they perceive their own performance. So I think know thyself is a great way to self-evaluate. Where am I? Where am I standing? Where are those rotten eggs in my life? What are those broken records? I have already started practicing those 7 steps of healing. Where am I in that process? Like, am I creating boundaries? Am I surrounding myself with a support team? If I have made attempts to change the way I conduct myself, are those working, or do I need to change something? Are there relationships in my life that are re-traumatizing me, or that are becoming an obstacle for me to move forward in my recovery? Have I truly made a decision that I want to heal? So for me, that's the know thyself. I hope I did well, doctor.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm glad I let you explain that one because that was really good. And you know what? Some people, in order to do that, you really have to slow down and spend some time, right? You can't be, a lot of people I find are really busy distracting themselves with everything, and they don't take the time to sit and be still and contemplate and do that self-assessment. It's a really important step, really important step. So don't skip that.
Marybeth, how do you slow down? Any recommendations?
Ha ha ha. That's coming from someone who's not very good at slowing down. Both of us aren't very good at
We are
slowing down.
not. We are not.
No, I find that I need to really consciously almost put it on my calendar that I'm going to use this time to sit and do nothing or to think. Last Sunday, as I live in the Tucson desert, I had my husband drive me out to the middle of the desert, and I set up a chair and a cooler, and then I said, "You go away because I want to be here alone and in the quiet." And so I
Oh,
had a
wow.
nice 2 hour, a 2 hour time to read and listen to music and just think, without the distractions of being in my house or in town or whatever. So that was a decision I made that I needed to do that. And so I felt very refreshed. But if you don't, you don't always have that time, you can take a walk or go, sit outside your backyard, or in your case, you could go to the beach.
Absolutely. Self-reflection is a powerful tool. And I think that's ultimately what this is calling us to do, to self-reflect. And, particularly for those that are listening to us that are busy working mothers or fathers, or, we all lead busy lives. And I think in our society in the United States, being busy, it gets a little overrated, if you ask me, right? There's
Yeah.
almost like an intrinsic sense of pride in saying, I'm so busy, I'm so busy. I literally have a coworker that has a sign on her desk that says, I'm very busy. And so I think that we overrate business, and
Yeah.
we are worth taking a minute to breathe and to ourselves. And whether that is, we've spoken about yoga before, whether that's prayer, whether that's, like Marybeth was saying, going in the middle of the desert and setting a chair with music, whatever that form takes, take time to self-reflect and know thyself.
Yeah. Very important. Very important. Okay. So step number 2 is letting go of the past. And part of letting go of the past is to kind of grieve for what was lost or what was not. Sometimes you may have grown up in a chaotic and trauma filled home and you didn't have a quote unquote normal childhood. Um, and it's okay to spend some time grieving that. In the Bible, they talk about lamenting that. Sometimes I say wallow or have a pity party. I think it's okay to spend some time grieving for what was lost.
Absolutely. I'm still in that process with my loss of my husband, and I'm not done. I'm not done grieving after 2.5 years. But you're right, like facing those things that are not and that will never be anymore. Um, and understanding that those things are gone. Like many of us may be dealing with loss. In my case, it's the physical loss of my husband. In our audience's case, it can be the loss of a child, the loss of a relationship. Maybe you've lost a marriage. Maybe you're going through divorce, a separation. Maybe you've lost a job. Maybe you've lost a great career opportunity. I have someone in my life that I coached once, and she was fired because she was rude. Literally, she was fired because she was very rude, and the manager kept receiving complaints about this person being constantly rude. And I will never forget, she came to me and she said, I don't know what to do with that. She's like, how do I even pick up the pieces? What does that mean? And we had to go back, we had to take a look at her upbringing and how being mean and rude was the way they were. I mean, she grew up in a family where that was the way they communicated, with meanness and sarcasm. And so she grew up, that is what she saw and that is what she did. And in order for her to course correct, she had to look inside and realize that that was a past that she couldn't recreate, but that she had a choice as to how she moved forward, right? And there was a lot of grief in her realizing that the impact that her upbringing had had on who she was today.
Yeah. And you know what? Grief is not fun, as you will say. You will affirm that it's not fun. Nobody wants to grieve. If you don't do the work of grief, it's almost like a part of you stays tied to the past because and you can't really reinvest in the future until you do the hard work.
Yes.
And so, right, and it can be a relationship, a job, sometimes moving across the country and losing your support system. You can grieve that, and it can
Yeah.
be illness. So there's lots of ways that you can grieve.
And Marybeth, your life has been marked by grief and loss, right? As we've discovered before. I'm sure that's something that you would tell our listeners is that grief and that grief curve that we're also familiar with is not linear. This is not
No.
like you're angry and then you're like, okay, I'm done with anger and now I'm gonna go to denial. Now I'm done with denial. It does not work that way. It's actually like a continuum that goes like this, and you go back and you go backwards and then you move forward. And sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm getting and then you're sent back. And I think for me personally, what has worked is stop when I have regressed, or I don't know if even to call it regression. Simply when my emotions have taken me to a different direction, I go there with them, and I revisit my pain, and I make a new determination of what I'm going to do with that pain. Because at the end of the day, as with everything, it's all about choices, right? And
Yep.
decisions. We can decide to stay in the middle of the street with a broken leg, or we can choose to put a cast, hold our leg, knowing that it still hurts, but refusing to stay in the street, and I think grief is all about that. And sometimes our emotions are going to have to play catch with our decision, right?
Yep.
We've said this before, we feel our emotions, we just don't let them take the driver's seat. Sometimes we're going to decide, I'm going to heal, I'm not going to stay down, and our emotions might not necessarily walk the path with us immediately, but ultimately we need to be persistent.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. Grief does not follow a straight line in any way, shape, or form. There is no right or wrong way to grieve. Each person does it in their own way. Each loss can be grieved in a different way. Um, and so, yeah, the funny thing about those stages of grief is that they weren't even written for death. It was for
Change.
it, and it was even for like people who are dying go through those 5 stages, right? So if I have a terminal illness, I'm going to have denial and anger and depression and then acceptance. It really wasn't, it got applied to grief, and you do go through those emotions and grief as well. Yeah, don't
I
get
did not know
stuck
that,
in
Mary
that.
Beth. I did not know that. And and so looking at it from that perspective, it's almost you can justify that to a degree it can be linear, right? Because that person that is terminally ill, eventually that person's going to be gone. So the change curve is going to come to an end. But when we apply
Right.
it to actual human living beings, it's not like that, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely not. So not fun to do, but it's a necessary step in the healing process. And there is no time table, and don't let people tell you that there should be, or that you're doing it wrong, or yeah,
Grief
you
looks
do.
different for every individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, step number 3. Well, now we move from grieving to being grateful, um, and the importance of gratitude. And I think you mentioned it a couple episodes ago. Even the hardest, most horrible life there's usually some joy sprinkled. It might not be a lot, but there is some joy. And I always say that there's a phrase. It's like life is hard and then you die. That's a quote from someone. And that sounds very sad and depressing. But life is hard. But there is joy sprinkled in there. So you have to find that.
Absolutely. And I find that the best way to fight loss and feelings of grief, um, the best way to manage them is with gratitude, right? Like
Yep.
you can get narrowly focused on what you lost, and that's going to make you really, really unhappy. And of course, we've said that you have to deal with it. But then you move to a point where you go, but this is going well, and this is going well. And, my kids are alive, and I have a way to pay my bills. And, I have a new podcast, I have loyal friends that are with me. I have a relationship with God. I mean, whatever that list looks like for you. But I think that making a list of what you're grateful for could change your life. In my case, Mary Beth, I have a physical list, and I keep adding to it of why I'm grateful. And I find that is a excellent complement to my list of why I'm grieving, because it reminds me, as you were saying a minute ago, that it's a yin yang kind of a thing, that not everything is bad, not everything is good, right? But not
Right.
everything is bad. And I think, talking about filters, as we were talking last week, I think our upbringings also can make us very prone to look at life, and some of us look at life as a glass half empty, right? And so I think that when we have that tendency, something that we can do that is very powerful is making a list. And I would say don't make a mental list, because
No, write it down.
as we've been talking, redirecting our thoughts is not easy. So write it down so that when your mind is playing tricks on you, you have something tangible that you can look at and say, you know what? Not everything is dark.
Yep. I started doing this year. I keep I'm old school. I have a digital one too, but I have an actual written planner where I write out my schedule. And I started making a gratitude list in there, and I did one letter of the alphabet each day. So I would start with A, something that starts with A that I'm grateful for, and I would work through the 26, and then I would repeat, and then I would have to do that. And that forced me to do that every day. Gets a little tricky when you get to the letter X for what you're grateful for, but you kind of have to stretch it out there.
You're
Yeah,
great.
find
You're
something that
grateful.
works.
You're grateful for X-rays.
I'm grateful for X-rays. Yeah, that's about. I don't know what else starts with X, but if anybody can comment and let me know, I can use that in my gratitude list
That's
coming
hilarious.
up here.
No, I mean, just before we move, like literally, like I encourage people, I have a grief list and I have a gratitude list. And both are powerful because that grief list, which is more like a written prayer, it allows me, and I think I've shared with you, Mary Beth, it allows me to like deposit my pain in the paper, right? I can deposit my pain in the paper. And when I deposit my pain in the paper, just as you told us about that item that you put in the box and you're like, I'm not going to touch it because it's in the box. Well, in my case, when I put it in the paper, it leaves my mind and it goes into the paper, right? And if I start feeling sad again, I revisit it only because it allows me to be in touch with my emotions, right? But then on the
Yep.
same token, I have that other list, my list of gratitude, and they both play a role in our lives. So highly
Yep.
recommend lists.
Yeah. Lists are good. And writing, I agree. You got to write it down. It helps.
Yeah.
It helps. Okay. Number 4 is be kind to yourself. Jenny Matt, how are you kind to yourself?
Well, for starters, I love doing my makeup. So I'm very
Okay.
kind to myself that way. Every night, it doesn't matter how late I get home, and I get home late because I work 2 jobs, as you know, Marybeth.
Mm-hmm.
I have a beauty routine and I don't violate it. I have my creams, I have my oils, and I treat myself to that routine. And once in a while I make time for a pedicure, and if I'm able, and it's been a while, if I'm honest with myself, I go to the ocean with a friend. Just trying to find things that make me happy and that fill my emotional tank, right? I learned that also from one Marybeth Steigenga, and that is that we tend to pour ourselves into others. And I think particularly working mothers, we have like a master's, like a doctorate degree on that. Like we
Yes.
pour into. And like you taught me many, many years ago, like sometimes we're empty and we are giving to others from a position of emptiness. So we need to make sure that our emotional tank is full, that we have something to give to others.
Yeah, I will never forget my counselor told me, you need to spend some time taking care of you. And I was like, but I'm a mom and I'm a wife. And at that time, I owned a business and I had a mom who had just had heart surgery. And so I had all of these things that I was pouring into others. And she goes, but you're not giving your best self to any of these things. And so it's not being selfish. It's actually you're going to be able to be a better mom, wife, daughter, business owner if you fill yourself up. And that took that I'm being selfish kind of excuse away. So that helped me.
Yes, I had a lot of problems with that when I met you. I had zero boundaries, as we already know, top level people pleaser, and everything was about giving to others, giving to others, giving to others. Well, unfortunately, what that meant is I was always tired. I was always sleep deprived. And guess what? That would put me in a bad mood. And it would not allow me to be the best that I could be to my husband, to my kids, and to the people that I minister to. So I think sometimes we can be blinded to our own needs. And in that process, we can become, rather than weapons of blessing others, we can become weapons to hurt others.
Yeah.
And so, like, we should want to be kind to ourselves just for the sake of loving ourselves and be kind to ourselves. But if we cannot convince you to change your focus from others to yourself, then understand, as Marybeth was saying a minute ago, that if we are not taking care of ourselves, we won't be able to give the best of us to others.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So look into some, like Jenny said, some good things there. Get a mani-pedi, get a massage. Sometimes, and it doesn't have to be expensive. You can go, I have a hammock chair in my backyard and I like to just swing in the hammock chair for 5 minutes. And that's a good self-care thing for me. So just
That
find
sounds like fun.
those little, well, if you ever come visit me out here, I'll get you a set up in the hammock. So,
Right. All right.
so lots of fun. So yeah, so be kind to yourself. And then number 5 is to be curious about your thoughts and actions. And I think what I was meaning by that one is sometimes it's again kind of going with the assess thing, but what's going on? Like, why did I just do what I just did? Or why am I thinking what I'm thinking? And get that curiosity thing going so that you can go, oh, maybe it's because of this filter, or maybe it's because of this experience from my youth, or maybe it's, and do I need to go back and revisit some things from the past and maybe do some more healing? We've talked about it. It's a journey. It's a lifetime journey. You are not going to heal overnight, and so you might have to go back and do some more work. And so if things pop up that you're like, wait, why did I react that way? Why did I go from 0 to 100 in that? What was that about? Get curious and look into that.
Marybeth, I find that so, so useful. I remember having a very short fuse with people that didn't provide me with good customer service.
Oh yeah.
I cannot explain it to you. When I would meet someone that was rude, or that was a particular challenge for me. And talking about get curious about your thoughts, that is an area that I had to get really deep into and find out why my level of tolerance was so low.
Oh.
And what I found is that I was demanding subconsciously, I was demanding from others what had been demanded from me, which was
Mm.
absolute perfection, like no room to be anything but perfect. And again, it wasn't that I consciously went, oh, I'm going to go to this restaurant, I'm going to require absolute perfection, but it was in my subconscious. So when somebody did less than appropriate service, it was like it automatically set me off, and I felt offended, and I had a very, very hard time tolerating.
Yeah, so right, that's a great example of looking at like, why am I doing that? Oh, it's because I was required to be perfect, and subconsciously, I think everyone has
Yep.
to be perfect. So get curious about that, and if you need to do more work, go back and do some more work. Number 6 is stay positive, or have perseverance, or grit, whatever you want to call that. Sometimes, man, this is hard work, and sometimes you get exhausted and you're like, ugh, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard and I'm tired. Um, and so yeah, that's where you have to dig into the grit and keep going. That's where you're going to want to lean on your support to encourage you along the way. I know I've gone through seasons where I'm like, this is too hard and I'm done. Um, and yeah, but again, that goes back to the choice. Do I want to lay in the street with a broken leg? No, I really don't. So that's going to require me to do the physical therapy to get better so I can walk. So yeah, so this is number 6. And then number 7 is, and we talked about forgiving yourself in the previous episode, right? When you're cleaning up your mess, you're going to forgive yourself and you're going to ask forgiveness from others. This one is, we're calling it Set Yourself Free, the Power of Forgiveness, which is now I have to forgive those who have hurt me. Uh, and that can look in varying degrees, right? If it's not safe to go to that person and ask, and have and ask or give forgiveness from them, or to forgive them, you might need to just do that work on your own. Writing a letter that you might not send, um, stating that. There's different ways to do that, working it through with a counselor, talking to a friend about it. But if you have the opportunity, it is very powerful to go to that person and tell them, I do forgive you for what you've done. It
Absolutely.
hurt me, and here is what and I need to move forward. And so I'm going to give you forgiveness.
We've said it before, Marybeth, but we're going to say it again, because at the end of the day, resentment is by far one of the most pervasive things that can really delay our ability to heal, right? And we've said it before, but we'll say it again. Holding on to hate, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to fall dead, right?
Mhm.
And so it's for our own good, right? I mean, sometimes we think, oh, this person doesn't deserve me to forgive them. How about you say, I deserve the benefits of forgiving this person, right?
Yeah.
Like I am dying. I am stuck in a cycle of self-hatred, of anguish. I mean, it's been proven scientifically, people that have a problem to forgive develop physical issues, develop
Yeah.
emotional health issues, mental illness problems. So again, this is a step to move forward so that you and I can move forward, right? Because that person, and I always tell people when I'm working with them and their inability to forgive, I always tell people, I said, do not become a victim twice. Like you were victim once because of what that person did to you, right? When you hold on to resentment, when you refuse to forgive that person, you become their victim for a second time, because now you are going to reap the repercussions of that lack of forgiveness for years to come, you know?
Yep.
So I definitely think that a step to move forward, a very important step to move forward is to forgive others. As hard as it may be, is to let go of resentment. Now, Marybeth, this is important. And John was very good at this, and he said it many, many times. And he said, forgiving someone doesn't mean that you have to become their best friends, right?
Right. I was going to say forgiveness and reconciliation are two different things. It might not be
Absolutely.
safe, right? But the forgiveness is, again, that's keeping your side of the street clean too, is you want to have that for your benefit, not necessarily for their benefit.
Exactly. So your position is, you know what, you did this to me. I'm not going to hold it against you anymore. I am not going to keep rehashing it in my mind. I'm not going to allow it to continue eating me up inside. But if you have not shown me that you can change, if you have not shown me that you can respect me, if you have not shown me that if I stay in your presence, this is not going to happen again, then I'm choosing not to have a regular relationship with you, right? I mean, I forgive you, but I'm not giving you the bat for you to hit me again, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, I think of all of the steps, the one that gives you the most freedom is the forgiveness. It's the one that is ultimately gives you the peace to move forward. So all of the steps are super important, but I think without forgiveness, you're going to stay stuck.
Yeah. Hard to do, but as we've
Yeah.
said, we must persevere and have grit, right?
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
So let's
Um,
recap. Unless you had
okay.
something else you wanted to add, Marybeth.
No, I think that was it for that. I think we could have a whole episode probably on forgiveness.
For
But
sure, for
um
sure.
and I'm anxious to hear from our listeners and viewers, their stories of forgiveness. What does that look like, and how did they do it if they did it? It'll
Yes.
be interesting to hear some of those stories about what that looks like.
Yeah, I'm eager to hear it too, because all of us deal on a daily basis with situations where we have to extend grace and forgiveness to others. And I think that depending on the fault or whatever happened, that's going to take probably a different shape. And I think that's where the power of knowing each other's stories and how we've handled it can have a determining impact in us.
Yeah, for sure. All right,
Absolutely.
so recap. Number one, know thyself, Jenny. Number two, let go of the past and do the horrible work that we call grief. Not fun, but definitely necessary. I love your grief and gratitude. That goes with number three. Make a grief list, make a gratitude list. So number three
Yes.
is be grateful for what you do have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Number 4, be kind to yourself. That looks different for everybody, but swing in a hammock chair or have a salted caramel latte or go to the beach, whatever works for you.
Or do your makeup.
Do your makeup or your beauty routine at night.
Yes.
I was going to say, I don't have a beauty routine at night, so maybe you can give me some pointers for the next days. Number 5 is get curious. What those actions and behaviors that are still popping up, what's going on there, and what do I need to go do to fix some of those again?
Yep.
Number 6 is grit or perseverance.
Stick to it.
And number 7. Yep, stick to it. Be positive and stick to it. And Jenny, what is number 7? Wrap it up for us.
Set yourself free and forgive others. Extend forgiveness. Refuse to hold on to resentment.
All right. I think those are you made it seem easy, and again, it's hard, and that's what we're here for. If you need help with any of these steps, reach out. Jenny and I would love to work through some of this stuff with you.
Yes.
You can email us. You saw, I think last time you made us do this hand thing, and I was trying to do the hand thing and the
here, exactly.
So our websites will be up there, and the emails will be up there. So reach out. And yeah, we're going to get ready now to start having our listeners tell their stories.
Yes.
And bring it into the next phase.
We have names. So we're super excited. Next week we're going to be applying this whole framework to Marisa and to your client, Marybeth. Susan, yeah. And the reason we're struggling with the names, guys, is because we changed their names to protect their identity. So we're bad liars. So it's kind of hard to remember the fictitious names. But we're going to apply this whole framework of rotten eggs, broken records, 7 steps to heal, 7 steps to move forward. Now, if in this process you get triggered, remember those relaxation exercises that we discussed. If in the process of this, you're I need to heal, I'm really hurting, I need more than this, that is where, like Miss Marybeth said a minute ago, you can reach out to us. If you don't already have a counselor or a coach, we will be more than happy to support you in any way that we can, because sometimes we do need personalized care. All right?
All right. Well, it was good to see you again, and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. And I'm off to finish cleaning my house. That's on my agenda right after this.
I'm off to going back to work. So we'll see you guys very, very soon. Make sure to leave those comments, and we'll see you again in our next episode. Bye.
All righty. Bye-bye.
Take care.